What's up, people? D-Negs here, just coming off a head shaker of a match against Phil Hellmuth. Hope you guys watched it on Poker Go. It was a marathon. If you remember, I had him down 97-3. So we grinded him down when we were deep stack, and then he was able to, double in a big pot, and then, proceeded to hit like river after river in key pots, and then all of a sudden the blinds are high, and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. D-Negs is out. But I wanted to go over a few of the hands because Phil has this tendency to get the most upset and blow up and call me an idiot or other people an idiot for the most standard plays imaginable, right? They're not even spots where it's like, oh, what are you doing calling 10 bets with 9-deuce offsuit? They're just ABC. And I want to go over a few of them so you have a better understanding, because what I think Phil does is, and he's been great at this for a long time as a tournament player, is he plays 40 big blinds or less quite often, right? That's been his bread and butter. It's not deep stack cash games and stuff like that. So for him, he extrapolates from 40 big blinds and uses that strategy, thinks like that when he's playing 300 or 500 big blinds deep, right? Which we know is not the case. So for him, he sees a hand like 6-8 suited. He's like, well, listen, if I only got 40 big blinds, I can't be calling re-raises and things like that. But when you're 300 big blinds, playing heads up in position, it's a cardinal sin to fold a hand like that. And we're going to go over some of the more, detailed reasons as to why. But first and foremost, when you're playing heads up and you're deep, right, there is a line where if you're folding too often, right, your opponent could then theoretically just 3-bet you a ton and print EV, regardless of what they have, right? They could literally do it every time if you don't adjust and start, at least folding at the correct frequency. Or, if someone's egregious with it, then you can start overcalling. Phil doesn't really grasp this so well, again, because I think partly because he comes from the 40 big blind territory world and, doesn't get it. So let's go over the first one since we were talking about 6-8 of hearts. Okay. So in this first hand, I start the hand with 53,000. Phil had 47,000. And the blinds are 75-150. So still incredibly small blinds. We are incredibly deep. Okay. So in this hand, I opened to 2.5 big blinds, which is 375. Okay. With 6-8 of hearts, which is, like ABC standard, this is just what you do, right? Now Phil 3-bets to 1,500, which is exactly 10 big blinds. Okay. So I opened to 2.5. He's made it 10. And we're sitting on like 300 big blinds, and I'm in position with a suited connector like 6-8 of hearts. So again, he's thinking from the place of, well, I made a big raise, but it ain't that big, It's actually just it's a good size raise. I like his raise size there. You should be making it about 10x. But to think that 6-8 suited folds in position here, it's kind of silly, really. It's a great hand to call with in position. So I, of course, do make the call. And now the flop comes King of Hearts, 6 of Clubs, 5 of Hearts. It's a great flop for us. We got middle pair, flush draw, pretty strong hand. Now he goes ahead and bets 1,500 into 3,000. It's fine. He has ace-8 here. Yeah, it's fine here. I think the size in this spot typically should either be lower or bigger, right? You kind of want to polarize your sizes as the 3-better. So you kind of want to be away from the mid pot, your half pot range, and you want to kind of either bet small, like 25 to 30%, or a bit bigger, like 2/3 pot or something like that. Okay. He elects to go half. It's fine. It's, it's a small thing, but there are sizes that are a little bit more optimal that accomplish more. So I have a choice here. I could raise, but I don't think that's a good play. I think it's a really strong hand to call with. You need some really strong hands in your calling range. You could raise for sure. There's nothing wrong with that. But as my general strategy with Phil was going to play out, I thought I'm just going to flat here a lot. So I need to flat with some pretty good strong hands. So the turn card is the 9 of spades. Now Phil bets 3,800 into 6,000, okay? So here's the issue for Phil, which he doesn't really grasp, I don't think, too well, is that card, that deep, is generally speaking going to be a check, right? Because that 9 connects with more hands that your opponent has than you do, right? Your opponent can have, you could have 7-8s and stuff, but Phil doesn't really 3-bet with those hands, right? So I'm going to have sets of 6s and 5s. He doesn't 3-bet those. Maybe he turned 3 9s, but overall, when you think of the number of hands he can have versus the ones I can have on that turn card is going to be better for my range than his. All right, so he bets 3,800. He's going with the bluff. again, we don't raise here. You know, we've got plenty of equity. Even if he does have aces, that's fine. We still have a 6, 7, 8, or a heart to catch. River's the 7 of diamonds, and now he bets 7,600. I mean, I could raise here in theory, but I was pretty convinced that the only hand he's calling me with, if I raise, is an 8, and some of those 8s could, very small chance, have a 10 in it. You know, in a cash game, you should be more apt to raise anyway, right? But in a tournament, you kind of want to be a little bit more careful sometimes because, you know, you're on, you know, limited stack size. So felt like a fine call. But anyway, Phil berates me and says, you know, this is why I'm going to win the match because you're calling with stupid hands like that. And it's like, what? He always gets mad about the most, like, I don't know. There was nothing I did there that was anything out of the ordinary. I called with a hand that's supposed to call. All right, let's go on to the next hand. This King 9 of diamonds was a hand that really stuck with me. We start this hand. I was up to 70,000. Phil had 30,000. We are on 150, 300 blinds. I go ahead and raise the button with the King 9 of diamonds. I make it 750, which is 2.5 times the blind, which was my standard at this depth. As it, you know, we get shorter and more shallow, my raise sizes are going to start going down. So now Phil bets 3 bets to 2,100. Okay, he's got 100 big blinds. I've made it 2.5x. He's made it 7x. That's not good. It's just not theoretically very, very good. Phil berated me for this one, saying I should not be calling with King 9 of diamonds, okay? If you look at a range that calls a 3-bet and you eliminate King 9 of diamonds and 6, 8 of hearts, what's left? There aren't enough hands left to defend properly, and what you end up doing is you make your calling range so face up, right? If you're folding hands like this. It's just astronomical to think that, you know, folding King 9 of diamonds in his mind is a thing, right? Again, it all comes from the mindset of, I'm a 40 big blind guy, so this is what I would do at 40. I must do the same thing at 500. And we just know that's not true empirically. This is just obvious truth, okay? So anyway, he 3-bets to 2,100. We have the King 9 of diamonds. We, of course, take the flop, which is normal. And the flop comes down Jack 4-4 with the Jack of diamonds. Now Phil goes ahead and he bets his half pot again. Once again, as I said before, this is a spot where you either want to bet smaller or bigger. He goes for the half pot. Again, it's fine. I'm nitpicking right now, but it's not bad, if you will. It's just not optimal. Now with the King 9 of diamonds, there is no chance that you can ever profitably fold here on the flop, right? You need to defend a decent amount after getting 3-bet, and you have to call a lot of flops. I have a 3-card straight flush. I've got backdoor hands, and I've got King 9 high, which could be the best hand. He does 3-bet sometimes with 10-6 offsuit, with worse kings like King 5 and stuff like that. So in position, you definitely want to defend a hand like King 9 of diamonds. So once again, I make, for all intents and purposes, what's an absolutely 100% standard call, okay? Now there's 8,400 in the pot. The turn card is the 9 of spades. Now Phil checks, okay? So we've turned our 9, which is likely to be the best hand, okay? He might have 10s, sure. But typically Phil in these spots, he's going to bet his hands himself, right? He's not usually one to bet the flop, check over pairs on the turn. I mean, he could, sure. But anyways, I feel like we have the best hand now, a very high percentage of the time. Can deny some equity, possibly get called by a hand like 7s or 8s. So I, of course, bet half pot, 4,200 on the turn. In position is different than out of position. On the turn is different. So this is where half pot actually makes some sense. And Phil thinks for betting, and he calls. He calls me with ace-8. That's a mistake too, okay? Very, very difficult against good players to think that you can call this turn and then just like hope on the river your opponent doesn't barrel, or that your hand is good, or that you spike one of 3 outs maybe, which is an ace. Like, if I have a 9 or a jack, he's got 3 outs. If I don't, I probably have a decent amount of equity. And if I do and miss, I'm probably going to bet again. So if you have that ace-8, you have to be prepared to call this turn bet and then face a big bet on the river with a really weak hand, right? I mean, just when I call the flop, I have to have something, right? Something wrapped around the jack, maybe a better ace high, maybe pocket pairs. Overall, my range that calls and bets this turn, he can safely fold ace-8, but he does not. He elects to call. River card is the 10 of diamonds. Not a great card for me. He checks. You know, he could have king, queen, king 10, a bunch of hands like that. So I just check it back, and he turns over the ace-8, so we win that one. blow up calling with king 9 of diamonds, this idiot. And again, remember in this case, I made it 2.5 before. He made it 7. It's important to think sometimes not in the number of chips, 2,100. How many big blinds is that? It's only 7, and we're playing 100 big blinds deep. I've already put in 2.5, so it's 4.5 more. I'm getting a very, very good price. All right, on the last one, the last hand was, this was a key one. I could have ended the match on this hand, but I did not, and I'll explain why. And this is one where he went ballistic as well. So he limped on the button with 255, and he's got 19K. I've got 81K at this point. So he's still sitting on close to 40 big blinds. He limps, which he does, 90% of the time or something like that. And I make it 3x. My strategy in the big blind in these spots is to make it a mix between 3 and 7. I only had 1 7 come up, and I do randomize this to a certain degree. And I also do some randomization or just some frequency stuff with which hands I do raise. Because I don't always raise with 6-4 suited. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I do it at a frequency, and I balance that. So I have both. So I have 6-4 suited in my calling range, and I also have it in my my raising range after the limp. So I make it 1500 to 3x, and that's 3x as I said. Now he limped with the 9s, and he re-raises me to 3700. Okay, so that's 2200 more, which is a little over 4 big blinds. I've just put in 3 big blinds. It's 4 more. It's essentially a min raise, okay? So now, and I'm also getting a decent price because there's already like a decent money in there. So I'm getting 2.5 or 3 to 1 with a hand that does play well post flop, and it's one that doesn't typically get you in a lot of trouble, right? You either smash it or you're just you're out of there. So, and it plays fine against ace king, ace queen. Obviously, if he's got an overpair, you're riding way uphill. But it's not like if you flop a 4 or a 6, you're going broke. A lot of times, if you're going to go broke, it's going to be a cooler situation where you make 2 pair and lose to a set, or you make a flush and he has the higher diamonds or something like that. So it's very, very rare where if you make your hand, you're going to lose. And again, the price is just way too good. So the mistake he makes here is making it 3,700. If he makes it 5,000, then you could theoretically say, well, yeah, that's a lot closer because he's gotten shorter on chips. And as you get shorter on chips, which is much more of his comfort zone, short stack, it allows you the opportunity to, fold some of these more marginal hands that you just cannot fold 100 plus big blinds deep. Now the flop comes 4-4-3 with 2 hearts. I check and Phil bets 4,000. Okay. Now everyone's like, well, why don't you just go all in? Bah! It's like so easy. Everyone's like an armchair quarterback because they see how the hand played out and they're like, wow, this is an obvious, check raise, get it in, right? But when you think about his range that limps there and then re-raises, right? It's going to be, high pair heavy and ace king, ace queen, right? Ace king, ace queen is drawing dead against this. Unfortunately, if he bets this flop and we check raise, he's going to fold that hand some of the time. We don't want him to ever be able to fold, right? And we also figured that if he does have an overpair, he's very likely to bet the turn with it or, bet the river or, something along those lines. So I just call. Protecting my calling range in this spot is somewhat important because I also need to call over here with some marginal hands. Some ace jack, ace queen, ace 10. I can't only have those hands when I call because, again, I didn't re-raise pre-flop, making it unlikely that I have aces, kings, or queens, etc. So to protect my range, sometimes with the strong hands, you're going to call. I wasn't doing a lot of check raising. It would have been very suspicious and also doesn't accomplish all that much other than, tying him to the hand. But on a board like that, if he does have an overpair, he's typically going to be pretty tied to it. Anyway, so I call. The turn card is the 8 of hearts. Now, that's not a good card for me. For a couple reasons. Number one, hearts got there. And number two, it's a scare card for him, right? So I check, of course, and he checks it back now with his 2 9s, which is a close play considering the fact that he's got about 12,000 left and there's 15 in the pot, to just give away the free card there. But I don't blame him. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's whatever. Sometimes you should probably have 9s there. Now the river card comes, the 5 of spades, which connects some straights. It connects ace deuce. It connects 6 7. And there's hearts there. So when you think about where I rank in my range of hands, or at least the nutted hands, I could have flushes here, right? I could have straights here. I could have full houses here. I could have a better 4, right? So I don't rank all that high in my range of hands, right? I still rank quite high with trip 4s, but there are a whole bunch of hands that beat me. Now the question is this. As played, he bet the flop, he checked the turn, right? So that typically is going to be an ace high hand rather than a pocket pair. okay? He's likely not going to have 9s, 10s, queens, kings, or aces. He's likely to have ace high, okay? So in that case, when there's 15 out there and he's got 12 left, if I bet 12,000, he's likely going to fold all of his ace highs, okay? I don't want him to do that, right? Since that's his most likely hand, that's the one I'm going to target. And because the board is so scary, if there were no hearts on board, if the 8 was not a heart, then I'm moving all in. But because there are so many strong hands that I could have here, I elect to go with a third pot bet of 5,000, which will get some ace high calls. It's going to get all the overpairs to call. And I go ahead and bet the 5,000. He snap calls, leave him with 7,000. I've got 93. Looks like a pretty good spot. And he's like, well, why don't you, check raise all in on the flop? I'm like, well, first of all, I didn't know you had exactly 9s. I also didn't know a heart was going to come on the turn. And I also didn't know that you were going to, check it back on the turn and stuff like that. So anyway, obviously in hindsight, looking at how the board ran out, I wish I would have check raised the flop, but put me in the same situation at the same time in the tournament, in the sit and go. I would not have. I would have 100% just check called again, and I would do it again tomorrow. So those are 3 hands that spoke to me in terms of, and they're 3 of the very few 3-bet hands because he does not re-raise pre very often, right? It's a very low frequency thing. So in his mind, he thinks, listen, man, I don't re-raise that much, so you should be over-folding to me, right? That's what he's thinking. That's why he gets frustrated because he plays so tight. He doesn't 3-bet, and then he does, so he expects people to just go, oh my God, that's Phil. I'm going to fold king, queen suited. You know what I mean? Or stuff like that. So, yeah. But there's other reasons too why specifically against him, because of the way he constructs his 3-betting range, it's even more important to defend wide in position. And the way that he plays his hands post-flop on flop and turn, it's even better, right? You can actually play an even wider range. So if I was playing, say, against a really top heads-up player, I would fold more to their 3-bets than I would to Phil's. And that's okay, because Phil's sometimes going to have some strong hands in there. He's going to have a whole bunch of trash, but I've got position, and he's out of position, and he's going to struggle deep stacked against me in those spots. So as you saw, when there was a lot of play, it was a pretty one-sided performance. I think it was pretty clear that he was struggling to win any big pots. It was very, very difficult for him. I imagine in the next match he will switch it up and try to do some new things, but I'm prepared for that as well, and I'm prepared to add some things to the repertoire. But for the most part, when deep stacked, there's not much that's going to change. And the thing is, if he's watching this video or whatever, it doesn't matter all that much because he just won't agree. You know what I mean? You could literally prove him mathematically that king 9 of diamonds, 300 big blinds deep, is a slam dunk call. You could ask 100 of the absolute top greatest no limit hold'em players in the world if they would call there. They all would accept him, and that's his thing. He has his white magic or whatever he does. But this is just a case of that specific part of his game, or him thinking that's a mistake. That's a leak. Okay, that's just unequivocally a mistake. And the hands that I played here, in all intents and purposes, were standard. The only one that you could make some arguments against is the 6-4 diamonds check raise flop again. But I think I made a good explanation for the reasons why I didn't do that. So I'm looking forward to playing the next match. Unfortunately, the people that bet on him at plus 150, because I was the betting odds had me at about minus 150. They watched it and they don't want to bet on him anymore because they saw that deep stack, my advantage was much bigger than you would expect. So again, I'm going to go into the next match. I'm probably going to build a lead when we play deep stack, and then hope this time to either finish him off when I have the chance, or actually win some pots when the blinds get up there. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something about the differences between really deep stack play and playing short stack tournaments. You certainly do. Phil's absolutely right. Off 40 big blinds, you can't be all loosey-goosey playing 6-8 of hearts for all kinds of big re-raise and stuff. But when you're 300 big blinds deep and your position, you should be looking for excuses to call or to re-raise rather than fold. Have a good one, y'all.